Welcome to today's webcast, 4 Ways to Simplify Data Onboarding with Rapid Data Profiling. Before we get started, I'd like to go through a few housekeeping items. If you experience any technical difficulties, you can reach out to us through the chat channel. Please feel free to ask questions throughout today's webcast by typing them into the questions box. We'll have a Q&A session at the end of today's webcast. If we don't get a chance to immediately answer your questions, we'll be sure to do so directly following today's event. This webcast is being recorded and will be made available on demand. During today's event, Krupa will provide an overview of rapid data profiling and the associated benefits. She'll also share some use cases where RDP has had significant impact. Last, Mike will walk you through a demo of Paxata's point-and-click approach for streamlining your data profiling and remediation efforts. I would now like to introduce you to Krupa to begin today's presentation.
Thank you, Debbie. Hi, everybody. This is Krupa Natarajan. I'm very excited to talk to you today about rapid data profiling, especially having had the privilege of seeing how profiling has helped many of our customers achieve rapid time to insights, which would have otherwise been a long and complex journey for them. So why is data so complex? A few market trends and enterprise challenges make data complex for our end users. Today, more and more decision makers want to take a more active role in sourcing data and bringing new external data sets into their organizations. A Forrester study shows that about 73% of decision makers are looking to add external sources of data into their insights. And these external data sources are more complex, and their content and quality is much less known. A Gartner study shows that about 80% of an organization's data today is unstructured, as opposed to how things were about 10 years ago, when most of an organization's data came from internal, curated, and highly structured sources, such as enterprise data warehouses. And lastly, the sheer volume of information is making faster decision-making more valuable. The faster you can act on your data, the more competitive advantage you will have. Now let's look into what that process is today, from the time a business analyst receives an external source of data to when that data has been onboarded successfully and ready to be actionable. Let's say a business analyst receives a data set of about 30 million rows from a partner. That data may be received in a format that the analyst is unfamiliar with, and more importantly, the analyst is unsure about the quality of the data. For example, a basic question on his mind, such as are all rows of a business critical field such as city populated, is unanswered at that point. The business analyst then turns around and hands the data set over to IT, who may then employ tools available to them to parse and structure that data. IT would then proceed to profile the data and provide an extract of that profiled information back to business. The analyst then looks into the data and requires further clarification and would revert back to their IT counterpart with additional needs. IT provides another extract, and so on. With multiple iterations of this process, it may take days, if not weeks or even months, before the data becomes actionable. The main reason for the long and iterative process is because business and IT perceive data quality quite differently. To a business analyst looking at a geo field in the data and expecting to only see US and UK as the values, any other value, including other valid country codes, may potentially signal existence of incorrect data. The analyst may also recognize that Corvus Pharmaceuticals and Gavis Pharmaceuticals are the same entity and need to be standardized, or that a Subaru listing that appears under the records for Maserati dealership is probably incorrect data as well. IT, on the other hand, looks to ensure that all fields are populated, the data types are standardized, special characters are dealt with, and any leading or trailing blanks are cleaned out. Understandably, this difference in approach to data quality requires tighter collaboration and iterative work on preparing the data. Now let's see what that process could look like when the business analyst is enabled with the right tools and technology. First, the business analyst needs to be able to bring in any data without needing to understand how the data is formatted or structured. This is a key starting point. Paxata's intelligent ingest capability automatically detects file formats and intelligently deduces the structure, converting the data into a usable format for the analyst. Once the data is imported, the business analyst should be able to generate a profile scorecard on the entire data set with a single click. The profile information should deliver a quick summary of the data, including addressing that basic question that was on his mind: are all rows of a particular business critical field, such as city, populated? It is important that the profile information and insights thereof represent the entire data set, regardless of the data size, rather than being constrained to a subset or a sample of the data. So armed with that profile information that is automatically surfaced, the business analyst can then proceed to transform and remediate any issues in the data. And for this, the analyst should be able to do so using an intuitive and interactive user interface, so he or she may achieve the results needed using clicks rather than writing code. And last but not least, wouldn't it be great if the system could automatically self-document all those steps that the analyst took, so the entire end-to-end process can then be easily automated for even faster onboarding to insights the next time around. So I'd like to talk about a real-world customer scenario where the self-service onboarding to insights journey was made highly efficient using the Paxata platform. For this, let me take the example of Unilog. Unilog is a global technology company that specializes in e-commerce and product data management. Their challenge was that they needed to onboard item lists from partners and standardize the data and make it available to their distributors through a clean product catalog. Business analysts would receive millions of SKUs, and in order to work with that data, they had to split it down into smaller chunks that would fit spreadsheets and consolidate those spreadsheets constantly. Using Paxata, they were able to onboard the data rapidly and even automatically identify duplicates in the data within minutes. Better yet, the entire onboarding, cleansing, deduplication process was automated, making data onboarding on a regular basis highly efficient, leading up to faster rates at which product data was being updated to their marketplace. Incredible time to value advantages. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Mike White, our product ninja, to show us what this process looks like.
Here at Paxata, we're all about the interactive experience. So before jumping into our live demo, let's do a quick poll for all attendees on the webcast today. The question is, how are you or someone on your data team performing data profiling activities today? Now, I'd like you to respond with the most predominant issue in mind. I'm sure many of you have a variety of these issues, but what is the most predominant one? So the options are 1, Excel and other manual methods, 2, custom SQL and scripting, 3, off-the-shelf profiling tools, 4, you're not sure but interested to learn more, and 5th, your company doesn't have problems with data quality or onboarding. So we'll give that a couple of seconds for you to finish responding. All right, let's take a look at the results here. 44% Excel and other manual methods. Okay, that is good to see for me because that means what I'm about to present to you will be very relevant. Also interesting to note that in second place is the custom SQL and scripting. Definitely will be relevant. Paxata's point and click capabilities, so we'll definitely highlight that. And then 17% of you responded off-the-shelf profiling tools. That's great. And then we actually have 6% that don't have problems with data quality or onboarding, which is pretty low. And it's interesting to note that the vast majority of the attendees do have issues with data quality. Okay, so I am now sharing my screen, and I've got Paxata pulled up. So simply put, let me just say Paxata's rapid data profiling gives you first eyes on data. Now, it's a visual point-and-click, enterprise-ready solution for data professionals to accelerate the most time-consuming part of the data onboarding and preparation process. Today, I'm going to present a common scenario where I take a customer file, which originally came in XML format, and I generate a profile summary report, which I'm about to do here. I'm going to review the results, and I'm going to take that insight to inform my interactive profiling and data prep activities to validate and produce a clean and complete output, ready for downstream analysis in BI reporting and predictive tools, or for data sources such as a CRM application, which is going to be the case today. I went ahead and I kicked off the one-click profile on this data set, and this allows me to see a holistic understanding, statistics into every value in every column across my entire data set here. So what I like to do is just highlight a couple of the insights that I get, and then once we get into my data preparation project, that is going to inform my flow and the actions I take to validate, prepare, and remediate this data and get it ready for onboarding. The first one I want to call out is this concept, and you'll see a lot of the usual profiling statistics here. The first one I want to call out is the number of fuzzy distinct values. So this is actually based on a phonetic algorithm. So this indicates, if we look down, we see that we've got, let me just highlight here for you too, in particular, the city and the state or province have a high percentage of potential phonetic duplicates. So that's something I'm going to want to look into and clean up once I get into my project. Now, the one-click profile also gave me the top 5 and bottom 5, which is really helpful to allow me to do a sanity check on the content, to validate what I'm expecting to see. With the top 5, I can also see things such as data standardization issues, like we see with the gender field here. Moving on into the bottom 5, a great place to identify any anomalies that may have slipped through the data. So in particular, I'm going to point out that I have a join date of 2107, miraculously, in the future. So I'm definitely going to look into that once I get into my project and figure out what's going on there and resolve that. Probably going to cause issues downstream. Then we have the top 5 patterns. So this helps me see unexpected formats in my key attributes. So for example, I am missing an area code here in the phone number, and then I also have a single-digit age, which doesn't make sense based on my customer base characteristics. Moving on, we've got insight into the data types in every column, and then I also see things such as the min, max, and average string length. Of note here is I've got a max string length of 50 on the address, the city field in particular. Now, this is problematic because I happen to know from past painful experience that our CRM application does not permit anything above 40 characters. So that's definitely something I need to resolve in my Paxata project. Last thing I'll point out, as we scroll over to the right, and by the way, this output can be customized. I've got one here called percent with non-printable characters. This is essentially a measure of, do I have any columns that have non-standard ASCII characters? Well, I've got the city column, and then I also have the email, and I'm most concerned about my email attribute having non-standard ASCII characters. That may indicate that when we try to send emails to these individuals, that it will bounce and they will not receive that communication. So I do want to resolve that. Now that I'm armed with this information and this foresight, I'm going to jump into a new data prep project, which I have seeded with my customer file, my full file. In this case, I want to point out it is just over 5.2 million records. And the beauty of Paxata and a differentiator of Paxata is the underlying architecture uses Spark. So it has optimized Spark to allow us to interact with the full data set and has optimized data preparation and profiling activities. And I like to make a point here that when I'm looking at this data set, I have full access to every single record here. Let me just scroll down to the very bottom to prove that point. So I come to the bottom of my monster spreadsheet, if you will, and I can see, I do see every single record of the 5.2 million here, which is fantastic. So now I know when I go to profile the data, I am looking at everything. When I go to apply transformations, I'm fixing everything. All right, so do you remember that high percent of possible phonetic duplicates that we saw in the customer city field? Let's take a closer look with the filtergram. Great, so we see we've got 476 unique values here. I can even see, you know, at the tip of the iceberg, if you will, we've got New York City shows up once, and then again down here, misspelled. And I happen to know there was a lot of phonetic duplicates in there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and fix this using Paxata's built-in cluster netted, which actually uses text algorithms to make the task of cleansing and standardizing data expedited and much easier. So within a couple of seconds, Paxata scanned every single record in this column and figured out that there are 34 clusters or groups of phonetically similar values. And there are other algorithms that I could use, but Metaphone is a great one because it allows me to see where I've got variations and misspellings. And now that Paxata has done the heavy lifting, all I have to do is go in and review these 34 groups of values and validate and select the groups. As I'm doing this, I'm telling Paxata to rename all of these values to the single clean suggested value here at the top. Right? So my work becomes minimal and I don't have to spend hours or days in Excel, which I have personally done before and am glad to never have to do it again. Right? And maybe I've got some false positives. Of course, I can go in and remove those as needed. So let's go ahead and apply that. Again, everything in Paxata is done in real time on the complete data set within my project. So I see that I have, as a result, we've reduced it down to 357. Now, if you don't remember, you can always go back in the steps panel. I'm going to mute this step. We had 476 unique values. Now, we go back and say, okay, what did the data look like after cluster and edit? 357. Awesome. That is a big increase in data accuracy, about 25%. Great. So now that that's addressed, I'm going to go on to the next issue that we had, which is I'm going to apply actually a business rule. I'm going to derive a new column to flag any records that have an invalid city field length, as you recall. So I'll go and I'll apply a compute. I'm going to take advantage of my clipboard utility here, and I'm going to paste in my computed column in the interest of time. So we'll put that in there. You can see the syntax mirrors that of Excel, and this is going to give me the valid customer city field lengths. So I'll save that, and now I've got a new column that I can easily filter on, and I'm able to see across the board wherever I may have issues with the city field length. And what do you know, 1,800 records or less than 1%. Let's filter on that, and let's go find out what is going on with these. So we come over, and we see we have, looks like one value is causing issues. That value is, I'm going to try to pronounce this, Lake Chargagaga Manchaugagag Chaubuna Gungamaug, which is a Native American lake in the region. Now, what I do, you know, I'm in the business context here is I'm going to open up a new tab and I'm going to go to Google Maps and I'm going to type in, well, where exactly is this lake? And there we see it. Google knows what I'm talking about. It's in Webster. Right? So for my purposes, I want to fix that issue in my data and make sure it's not going to cause issues in our CRM system. So I'm just going to go and double click on any of these cells. That's a shortcut into find and replace. And going to pre-populate that value, and I'm just going to replace it simply with the city of Webster in Massachusetts. Great. Now I just want to highlight here that being able to find a single problem like that from a sampling-based approach would have been likely impossible. So very invaluable to be able to incorporate and look at all of the records when I'm doing this type of onboarding work. Next is we saw we had an issue with the date joined. So I'm going to go back over and bring up a filter on that. And the beauty of filtering and profiling data in Paxata is it's content aware. So because it's dates, it's going to show me a timeline view and even allow me to drill all the way down to the hour if need be. Now in this case, I see this outlier way out here. I'm going to filter on that and figure out what's going on. So we can see as a result, 4,200 records, and it looks like July is the issue. So let's go in and fix that. Again, I'm going to do a find and replace, and I'm going to change this from 2107 to 2017. So definitely a transposition error we figured out. And you know what? I'm going to annotate that. So I'm just going to point out here that we fixed a date transposition error for July 7th. All right, and that's the beauty of Paxata, again, is it's capturing everything as I'm going along, point and click, but I can also add some of that tacit knowledge from my brain and put it into the project as part of an annotation. And now that distribution makes sense. All right, last thing I want to look at is I want to do one more business rule, and I want to derive a new column And this column is going to be called my standard ASCII and customer email. So I'm going to put that there, and I'm going to paste in also my formula. I want to point out here, Paxata does support regular expressions, which is great because in some cases things can get sophisticated. There are patterns you're looking for. You can capture and flag those patterns in Paxata, and this is just going to tell me, do I have any records that have non-standard ASCII? So let's pull up a filter on that, and let's see if we find, there they are, the 5 records. Again, impossible to find all 5 of these from a sampling-based approach. And we see we've got those 5 records. It looks like the issue is that we've got some emails with accented characters. Okay, that's fine. So I'm actually just going to capture a view of this data, and I'm going to let one of my team members look into it. So I'm going to call this problematic customer email addresses. I'm going to save it. A lens will capture my filtered data as I've specified here. I'm going to publish. So it's actually going to materialize this subset or exception report of the data in the library, and my team member can log in and go and work with it. Now, with that being said, I'm going to do one last lens, and I'm going to call this my clean and conformed output that's ready to publish for my downstream CRM system. And I'll hit publish on that as well. Now, with that last lens in place, we just received a glimpse of what Paxata can do to profile, filter, standardize, derive, flag, and remediate a full set of data in real time without resorting to code or Excel. And I have my self-documenting steps with annotations for added context and a repeatable workflow here that will make IT happy, since the governance and permissioning is built in. And I can immediately share this project and its output files to them as well. And remember, you can always automate this flow and onboard and prep new data on a regular basis. To summarize, 4 keys to success. And you will have seen this in the demo over the past 15 minutes. Paxata accelerates data onboarding with capabilities that include working with structured and semi-structured data, which is a great boon for business analysts. Being able to do everything with clicks and not code in an intuitive self-service user interface. And then having built-in intelligence and algorithmic intelligence that allows me to identify patterns, capture misspellings, and standardize those values, and even enrich the data through suggested automatic joins. And then finally, the scalability, which is huge in today's day and age in the enterprise, being able to work with large volumes beyond what's possible in Excel and still have an Excel-like experience and get those insights on the entire data. So now with that said, I would just like to see if there are any questions that we can take, and appreciate everybody staying on and listening to the webcast to this point.
We have a question from one of you that asks if it is possible to change the data type if it registers as 1. Example, if a date shows up as a number. It's absolutely possible to change between data types. Paxata has a rich set of functions that allows you to change types, format the date, and so on. But the beauty of it is that Paxata expects the data to come in an unclean form. So your entire column is not enforced to a single data type. You could have mixed types in the column because that is the process of identifying data quality issues and finally producing output that is more conformant. So some of the filtergram tools that Mike was showing us earlier can identify when individual data does not conform to the overall type that is expected of a particular column. So yes, it's possible to change types. There's a rich set of functionality that allows you to do that. And also it's possible to identify anomalies in types within a column and be able to manage those in an efficient way.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I actually encountered that issue a couple of weeks ago. So you can flag them, and then you can also resolve it with a single computed column that would convert that number into a date, a Paxata date that you can filter and export as such. We see another question. Can you upload multiple files to run a single analysis? So I think that's touching on ingesting data into Paxata. We didn't touch on that really in this webcast. I suspect a future one is in order to cover Paxata's new intelligent ingest capabilities. You absolutely can upload multiple files in a variety of formats in a single workflow, and that includes pulling data from your data lake or from cloud storage and Azure or Amazon Web Services, S3, or SFTP servers, or relational databases, or even your local machine.
We have one more question on the scale of data that you can interact with, and is there a limit to the number of rows you can interact with and prep as well as profile? As Mike mentioned, the beauty of the Paxata platform is that you can interact on your entire data set, which could be in the order of a few millions of rows, even a couple of 100 millions of rows, and still be able to generate the profile information on the entire data. In Mike's example, he showed where there were 5 non-conformant emails amongst a data set of more than about 5.5 million rows. That's something that you could only uncover when you have the potential and the capability to look at the entire data set and interact with it. So there are no technical limitations to working with the scale of data that you would require, as well as no need to sample upfront.
Right, well, that takes us a little bit over today's slotted time for the webcast. I want to thank Mike and Krupa and everyone attending today's webcast. We'll have an on-demand version that we will send out to everyone attending today's webcast. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and be sure to follow us, if you're not already, on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And thanks very much. This concludes today's webcast.
Thanks, everyone.